Hi everyone! Today I thought I'd show you my LEUCHTTURM1917 sketchbook. I've had quite a few people in the comments asking me about this sketchbook recently because I've been using it in some of my videos and people would like to know what my opinions are on it. So I thought it would be a good idea to do a video on it today because I've actually filled up about half of it now. First of all though, I've got some footage from early last year, I think it was, when I bought this sketchbook, of me unpackaging it. So we'll take a look at that now and then we'll come back. Today I got a new sketchbook in the post. It's the LEUCHTTURM1917. So I thought we'd take a little look at it before I delve in and use it. So it is a 180 grams per metre squared paper, and the paper is white, and it's actually a really thick book. There's lots of paper in there, and it says on the back, smooth paper made of high fibre cotton, ideal for classic sketching with pencils, charcoal, chalk, pastels, felt pens and markers. And we've got some bullet points here. We've got white paper, drawing board with 180 grams per metre squared, 96 pages, expandable pocket, page marker and elastic enclosure band, thread bound book, opens flat, sticker for labelling and archiving, and the dimensions are 145 by 210 millimetres, and this is acid-free paper. So this to me immediately seems like a really high quality sketchbook. The LEUCHTTURM1917 sketchbooks, they come in small, medium and large. This one is a medium, this one is an A5 size. The small one I assume would compare with the Moleskine small size. The reason I chose this one and not the Moleskine one is because the reviews suggested to me that the paper in this book was not necessarily better quality, but a nicer paper to work on because it's white and it takes markers and different media really well. So let's take a look. We've got nice elastic here. I chose the colour emerald because, well, my two favourite colours, they've got lots of colours. My two favourites were berry and this one, which is emerald. The berry was out of stock, so I went for this one. So if we open it up, it's a very nice book. Feels quality. We've got these cards here. Thank you very much for purchasing. And we have a little leaflet here. LEUCHTTURM1917, details make all the difference. And so this tells you all about how the book's been designed. Got a space to put your name and address. And then we get onto the paper. Now what I noticed immediately was that this paper is really thick and really smooth. I think this is going to take markers such as alcohol markers and Pitt artist brush pens really well. And does it flatten out? Yeah, that's pretty good, that is. Nice and flat. We've also got in this book a nice matching ribbon so you can mark your spot. And towards the back here, these are the stickers. Now these are nice. I'm not sure the cream colour would necessarily go with the coloured outside, but it's still nice to have some free stickers inside. I particularly like these ones here. They're nice and long for going on the side of your book when you're finished to archive it, so that's really nice. And I like how you get 3 rather than just 1, because if you mess it up, which I probably would do, you probably want to start again. And of course you get the pocket. So hopefully that gave you an idea of what the sketchbook looks like when you unpackage it. Now I have been using this sketchbook on and off since I bought it, so I've only filled it to halfway. But I really like it. I think it's a really nice sketchbook. I chose this nice sort of green teal colour, but it comes in all sorts of colours. Now what I particularly like about this book, in comparison to say the Moleskine books, is the fact that it's got really nice white paper in it. It's smooth and it's thick. And this is the kind of paper that I really love using with my alcohol markers. So it was an ideal choice for me because I do love using markers a lot and inking, things like that. So it works really, really well for that. I definitely recommend it if you enjoy working with alcohol markers, inking with pens, all that sort of stuff. Now we'll do a little kind of half sketchbook tour just to take a look at how some different mediums work on this paper. You'll recognise a lot of these drawings from some of my videos actually. This one was Doodle Birds, Let's Doodle Birds. And what I actually did here was I was using Crayola markers, but I was using a technique that I discovered for making them work a bit like alcohol markers. So do check that video out if you'd like to see how I did this. But even though I was using that technique, you do have to be careful when you're using any kind of regular felt tip pen kind of marker, because they are difficult to lay down without chewing up the paper. So you do have to work quickly if you're using regular markers that aren't alcohol markers. Here I was experimenting with, what was I experimenting with? It was either alcohol markers or Pitt pens, which is a kind of Indian ink, and I was using some colour pencil over the top. Now these sketchbooks aren't really hugely ideal for colour pencils because it's very smooth and there's no tooth for the pencils to grip onto. But I do find that they work well when you are adding some colour pencil over an existing layer, such as a marker layer. It works quite nicely to add some details. This is a bit of a messy page. This is just kind of me testing out different mediums, seeing how they work. I'm not going to be able to remember what they all are because it was quite a while ago now that I used these, but by the looks of things here where it's chewed up the paper, I think I was probably using some regular markers, some water-based markers. Down here we've got some colour pencil. It doesn't work too badly. I just don't think you're going to be able to layer and get some really good effects with this paper because it's too smooth. So yeah, and I've just got a few gel pen marks and a few other pen marks. The paper's pretty chewed up here, so this was probably some sort of regular marker. I love this piece. This is my alcohol markers. I think these are Copics, and the outlines I did with a Pentel brush pen, and both of those mediums work really well on this paper. So I got great effects with that. Now here I was using both alcohol markers and Pitt pens to create some cute owl characters. Both of those pens work really well together and they work really well on the paper and when layering. And I did actually use a bit of white, I don't know if you can tell there, a bit of white coloured pencil over there to sort of make a soft kind of highlight. So as I say, coloured pencils work really well when you've already laid down some ink layers. Some more cute cats there. If you guys would like me to do like a little kind of draw with me, watch me draw tutorial kind of thing on creating cute characters like this, because they're quite easy to do, then let me know in the comments and I'll definitely look into doing that. Here I was experimenting with shapes to create characters. Now this was a response to an illustration prompt. We actually had to use our non-dominant hands to create this, so I did this with my left hand. I normally draw with my right hand, so this was a super challenge for me. And I used both coloured pencils and like gel pens, and I think I might have used the Pitt pens here, I'm not sure, but it was mostly coloured pencil and gel pens, which I sort of did some line work and I layered up lots of little circles and things to create this. But yeah, that took me quite a while because I was using my left hand, which I don't normally draw with. But it turned out pretty good. I was quite impressed with myself. This is another sort of tester page, and this is a good example here of how regular markers don't work particularly well. This is alcohol marker here, so that's a nice smooth heart outline there, and then the owls I drew in colour pencil, and so as you can see, I'll have to hold it upside down so you can see. It's not bad. I don't think the coloured pencils I was using here were particularly good ones, so that didn't help, but yeah, just in general I don't think you're going to get great results just working straight on the paper in colour pencils. Now here I was testing some of my, I think they were water-based markers, and I tried layering a few of them here, and as you can see it really chews up the paper, so you've got to be really careful. Testing out a few ink pens. These were a few sort of chisel nib pens that I got in IKEA. This one here is an erasable pen that I got in the cheap pound shop. It didn't work very well and it completely chewed up the paper, so that was a bit of a no-no. And yeah, just highlighters and various pen tests there. This was another response to a illustration prompt, and I really layered up a load of materials here. I started off with watercolour, which did make the paper bobble a bit, and then I used coloured pencils to do some line work, and then this clock mechanism I used various shiny gel pens. So it's okay, but it's not great because the paper isn't really made for watercolours. There's a little colour pencil cactus. That wasn't too bad. I think the pencils I used here were better quality, so the pigment was sort of more saturated and nice there. So you can get some results with colour pencils. I just wouldn't necessarily recommend this sketchbook if you are mainly planning on using colour pencils. This one here you'll recognise from my homemade alcohol markers. They work really well on this paper and they didn't chew it up. And then I used a black fine liner pen to go around it. Here I'm just testing out some Muji gel pens and just generally playing around with things. These handmade, I don't know if you can see that, these handmade, this is actually a stamp that I made. It was really difficult to carve out the letters here. It's not too bad, but it could be better, so I think I'm going to keep trying. These are my Muji gel pens. They work really well on the paper, nice and crisp. And then something that also works really well are ink pads. So if you make stamps or if you buy stamps, stamping in this book makes nice results. I'm not sure if this page was in my DIY stamp video, but I believe this green ink here was my homemade ink pad using gouache paint. So that was quite successful there. This was just some little sketches. One thing I really enjoy is when the alcohol markers on one side of the page comes through to the next, and then sometimes you can just sort of sketch over that and use that as a base. So I find that quite fun to do. This was a picture that I made using homemade stamps. I made stamps to do the texture here and the leaves and the owls. So as you can see, ink pads work really well on this paper. This was an alcohol marker piece. Another alcohol marker piece there. This is supposed to be me when I'm older. When I'm old and grey, this will be me with all my cats, still drawing on a giant cat sofa. How cool would that be? This page is a bit of a mess. I was just playing around with different mediums, drawing curled up cats. I think this shimmery one here is like a shimmery watercolour. But in general, these experiments weren't very successful because I was using things like watercolours and regular markers that chew up the paper, and yeah, not very good. This is just some scribbles, some doodles in pen of cute animals. This is actually watercolour here, watercolour and some colour pencils. It's not bad, the result came out okay, but as you can see it did chew up the paper a bit. I didn't really work into it much with the colour pencil, I just scribbled a background, so it's not really a very good example here of what you can do with coloured pencils, but for the look that I was going for, I was really pleased with how this turned out. Here I was sketching with watercolours, using a brush to draw. That's quite successful. If you're just going to use quite a pigmented watercolour to draw with, like if you're drawing with a brush, then you could get away with it. But if you're wanting to use this sketchbook for watercolours, I wouldn't recommend it. It has no tooth to it, and it's not very absorbent for the watercolours, so all that's going to happen is your paper's going to buckle, and you're not going to get the effects that you want with watercolours, so I wouldn't recommend that. But I would recommend it for markers and inks. Here I was sketching out some banana trees. Now this is various markers, including pit pens. I used pit pens here, and they're an Indian ink. And as long as you work quickly, it doesn't chew up your paper. But if you're going to try and layer them or work over a particular area for a long time, then it's going to chew up your paper. So be careful. And what I was doing here was I was drawing some little animals and some teacups in a black fine liner, and then I did a background using my pit pens. So as you can see the difference here between pit pens and alcohol markers. Pit pens are an Indian ink, and so they're not going to lay down as evenly as alcohol markers, and so you can kind of see it's a bit splodgy, and that's where I've sort of coloured it in bit by bit, working as fast as I can. But it's a nice effect. It's a different effect. Sorry if you can hear noises outside, I'm not sure what's going on. Yep, just more experiments here. These were various pens, such as like chalk pens, that I was testing out here, but they didn't really work very well on the paper, and as you can see here it's really kind of gone all funny. But it's worth trying everything out. I mean, this is what sketchbooks are for. They're not for precious artwork, they're for trying things out. A few pen marks there, and then you might recognise this thing in the background because it's this drawing that I did very recently. And this is the drawing from my last video. So that's quite a nice spread, I quite like that. This new style that I've been experimenting with, I really like it, so I'm gonna keep experimenting, I think. And I really like how I just went for it with these two. I wasn't worried about messing it up. If I felt like doing something, I did it. So that's good. I mean, you learn from it. For example, I regretted adding the white here. I mean, it looks pretty cool now, but I kind of wish I hadn't added so much white, but you know, it is what it is, and I know that for next time now. But if you don't try things and if you don't make mistakes, you're never going to learn, so just go by that mantra. And I just want to show you this. I really love the impression it's made on the other page. I mean, that's just, sorry, I can't, the tripod's in the way, I'll have to hold it upside down, but how cool is that? I just love that. And that's the back side of that one. It's where the alcohol markers have come through the page. And I just think that looks so pretty. I think I might even prefer that to the actual piece on the other side. I think I like this better. But yeah, if you're using alcohol markers in here, you will want to have a piece of paper behind your work so that you don't ruin the next page. So yeah, it's a really nice sketchbook. I really love it. I enjoy using it a lot, and I would definitely recommend it if you want some nice paper that is white as opposed to a creamy kind of colour that you get in sketchbooks like Moleskine sketchbooks. Then yes, definitely go for a book like this because it works really well with alcohol markers. It does work with all sorts of media, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're really into watercolours or if you like using coloured pencils the most, because you are going to struggle with this sketchbook because it doesn't have much tooth to the paper. But if you want to use it for mixed media and layering, particularly if you like to start with a layer of alcohol markers like I do, and then add coloured pencil and things like that over the top, then this is an ideal sketchbook for you. So I hope you've enjoyed having a look at this sketchbook, and I will see you next time.